Good morning friends, I welcome you all in this session. In today's session we are going to talk about risk management. As in the very beginning I told you that project management should be studied on 10 different areas, and I told you that there are 10 areas and the short form of those 10 areas is Perth SSQCC, right? So let me tell you what is the full form of this. When we say P, it is procurement management, I is for integration management, R is for risk management. Risk management I am again repeating because is the topic of today's class. So risk management, then you have got time management, you have got human resource management, and then you have got scope management, stakeholders management, quality management, then you have got communication management and cost management, right? So out of all those 10 areas, I would say that one of the top 3 important areas is risk management. So whenever you come up with any project, you should be able to know a priori what would be the possible risks that project might face. And when I say risk can be a marketing risk or a technical risk or any other type of risk. There are several types of risks. So being a good manager, you should be able to at least know little bit about what are different risks your project can face, right? So let's get started. Projects generally operate in an environment of uncertainty. In fact, we do all those planning, staffing, organizing and all other stuff in management. Why we do all those things? Because of uncertain future. If everything is certain, then you just plan once and execute it, right? But we keep on doing planning, replanning, execution, re-execution and so on, right? So environment is very uncertain, and environment can be again classified into micro environment and macro environment. So when I talk about macro environment, I generally talk about pestle analysis. It's called pestle analysis or staple analysis, right? So let me tell you what are different factors which affect your project. So you have got, let's say, political environment of a country. So let's say if you want to start a project in India, nowadays political environment is quite stable. But if I ask you to start a project in, let's say, Syria, right? There is no political environment as such, right? So you can't have a project over there. Then you should have economic environment of the country. When I say economic environment means what are different GDP level of a country, what is NNP level of a country, isn't it? So all those economic aspects come into this particular set of pestle analysis, right? When I say social factors also play an important role in successful completion of a project. You have got technological factors, you have got legal factors, very important, legal framework. In fact, let me give you an example. There are several MNCs working in India, and our market is quite an open one, and several MNCs have got their plants in India. And let's say, suppose if tomorrow a new government comes and cancels all the policies related to installation of plants in India, then what will happen to those companies? In fact, they should have protection of legal framework in that case. So our legal system is quite a strong one. So this is also an important factor whenever we go for implementation of a project. And then ecological factors, you should also look at them carefully, right? So it's called pestle analysis, right? You should see overall environment of a country, right? So let us define what is project risk. Project risk is any possible event that can negatively affect the viability of project. So let us say if I am coming up with a new product tomorrow, and it's doing, let us say if it does well, and after let us say 1 month government comes up with a policy which is affecting that particular product. So that is actually a kind of political risk, right? So that would be an event that would be affecting my project negatively, right? So when you compare successful projects and unsuccessful projects, then there are several reasons for completing a project in a successful manner, but planning is one of the factors which affects successful projects more than other factors. So you need to plan, replan, and then you need to execute, right? So when we talk about risk management is broader concept. It is basically an art and science of identifying risk. First of all, you should know what is the risk for your project. If you don't identify it properly, then you cannot even analyze, you cannot come up with corrective actions and so on, right? So the first and foremost thing is you need to identify risk properly, analyze that risk, and respond to risk factors throughout life of the project, because as I have already talked about, there are different life cycle stages in a project. So in each stage you will have a different type of risk. In initial stage you will have a different kind of risk, and during implementation stage you will have different kinds of risks, right? So risk management is basically a process which will be there right from the beginning to completion of the project. So the process of risk management is like this. First of all, what is likely to happen, what is that which may affect my project negatively, right? And what is the probability of happening that event, and what would be the impact of that event. So first of all, you should know what is the probability of happening of a risk and how that risk is affecting my project, right? Just to give you an example, what is the probability that I am not delivering today's session? Now there is a possibility that let us say some technical problem in my laptop, right? What would be the impact of that? And I can identify the probability of the technical fault in my laptop from past data. How many times laptop didn't work in past, right? So by using past data I can find out what is the probability of failing my laptop, right? And what would be the impact of that? The impact would be that I will not be able to shoot this particular session, right? So in this way you should try to identify probability of risks and what would be the impact of those risks on your project, right? Once you are done with this first step, you just move on to second step. What can be done to minimize probability or impact of these risks, right? So once I know probability of failing of this particular laptop, from next time I should come up with some corrective actions, right? I should have a technical person with me, so I would be able to reduce the probability of happening that particular risk, right? So I should come up with different plans how to minimize the impact of a particular risk on a project, right? What are the warning signs? Now this is very important. When I say probability of failing this particular laptop, before any machine or any equipment or any project fails, they give you some signals. There are very few things which fail suddenly, but most of the things they give you signal of failure before actual failure, right. So, you should try to catch those signals, right. If you are able to catch those signals, then you can know that this might be a risk in future for your project. Okay. So, let us look at and then what are the likelihood outcomes of those problems and my actions, right. So, let us define what is project risk. As I said, risk means any event which is negatively affecting your project, right. So, project risk you can mathematically define as probability of event and consequences of event, right. So, multiplication of these two is nothing but project risk, right, probability of event and consequences of that event. So, that is project risk. Let us look at this slide. Now, if you look at this slide, then this curve is amount at stake in a project, because you would be incurring a lot of money in a project. So, amount of stake increases as the project life cycle moves from planning to execution to finishing phase, right. So, this is amount at stake, right. Now, if you look at in this particular slide, there are 4 phases. You have got initial conceptual phase, you are developing project. So, during these 2 phases you have got lots of opportunities. You can do several things in your project. You can change design, you can change manufacturing process, you can have new set of people, right. So, here you have got more and more opportunities in the beginning, right. When you move towards completion phase, these opportunities keep decreasing, right. And this is a point where these 2 curves intersect, right. Now, this is a point where you are almost finished with your implementation phase or towards end of implementation phase, right. And if you go for any changes in at this particular point, then this point is known as period of highest risk impact, right. So, the maximum loss would be somewhere here, right. Okay. So, this is the relationship between time and risk, right. Now, in risk management there are 4 stages. First is risk identification. As I said, you need to find out what are the possible risks, right. Once risks are identified, then analysis of probability of consequences, right. What would be the effect of those risks, right. The third one is risk mitigation strategies. Now, you should come up with what are your strategies, how to avoid those risks, or how to transfer those risks, or how to accept those risks, right. So, you can have different strategies for risk mitigation, right. Then once you are done with risk mitigation strategies, then you should have control and documentation. You should have documentation process very properly and should be done in a smooth manner, right. Because when you encounter a risk, you would get several learnings from that risk. You should create a document, right. So, that would act as a basis for future projects. So, you can know what suppose if something happens of similar nature in future projects, then you can take appropriate action, because you have already documented what had happened last time, right. So, we will see these processes, these 4 stages in details, right. Okay, before I go for detailing of these 4 stages, let us look at couple of types of risks. So, broadly you can classify them as internal or external risk, right? So financial risk, your project is ready but you are not able to get, let's say, loan from bank, right? Let's say you have got loan from bank but you didn't get second installment in time, right? Let's say interest rate is very high, right? So these are financial risks. You can have technical risks, right? Let's say you have come up with a product but due to some problem in machine tools you are not able to make that particular product, right? So you may have technical risks also, right? Then contractual and legal risks, because let's say you have signed an agreement with the supplier of raw material, but because of some problem between these two, between yourself and your supplier, the matter is now in court of law, right? So you will not get material in time, right? So that is contractual or legal risk, right? Then you have got commercial risk and execution risk. As I said, there are several risks during execution stage, right? And if something goes wrong in this stage, you would be at loss, right? In fact, all the stakeholders would be at loss. Apart from these risks, there are some common types of risks. Absenteeism, it's a very big problem these days in industry, right? Especially manufacturing industries. Absenteeism, and you need to find out what are the reasons for absenteeism, right? Why workers are, employees are not coming to the factory or plant regularly, right? Resignations, why people are resigning, are they getting, is there any problem with the environment of your company, right? So you need to come up with the reasons for resignations if there are, right? Staff pulled away by your competitors, right? So there is a shortage of skilled manpower, right? So there is always a risk that your skilled manpower would be pulled away by your competitors, right? So time overruns of a project, because of non-availability of resources on time, your project may go for, it may not be completed within time, right? So that is time overruns. Skills unavailability, it's a problem. Ineffective training, so it is good to train and retrain your employees, right? Specification incomplete or initial specification poorly specified. Let's say I am a manufacturer and I have given design task to, let's say, third party. So if I don't give proper specifications to the designer, he would not be able to design part properly, right? So that's again a risk. Change orders, generally what happens, let's say if you have received a project from a client, what happens, many times your clients will ask for several changes in your project. So those change orders will cost you a lot. So that is also a kind of risk, because at the end of the day cost of the project would increase, right? So how to identify risk? Very important. As I said, if you identify risk properly, then your half of the job is done, right? There is a saying, well begun is half done, right? So if you identify risk properly, then how to mitigate that risk is not a problem, right? So it's good to go for brainstorming sessions, and it is good to have experts from different functions of the organization. So brainstorming session can be structured or unstructured. In structured brainstorming session, let every member of the team of the brainstorming session come up with one or two risks, right? In unstructured brainstorming session, anyone can come up with a risk, right? So that is brainstorming meetings. If your product is new, Then you can also take expert opinion, right? If not expert opinion, then you may go for Delphi method. In fact, it is good to go for Delphi method, because in Delphi method you have got you ask for different risks to different experts, you summarize their opinions, and then again you go for second round of questionnaire to the experts. So, we will ask them again second time what are the possible risks, right? And we will in second round of Delphi method we will share the opinions expressed by experts in first round to all other or to all the experts. Past history, if you have got past data, then we can know what would be the possible risks in future, right? So, it is kind of time series analysis, right? It is kind of you can forecast your past data, right, into future. Then multiple team based assessment, you can have different, you can form different teams. Let us say you can have a technical team, you can have a marketing team, you can have quality team, and let them come up with different risks, right? So, this is very important step, risk factor identification. Once you have identified risk, then it is possible that a risk may be a result of several sources, right? So, let us say your product has failed, or let us say the sales of your product is decreasing, right? Now, that could be due to several reasons. Your sales managers are not properly working, there is a quality problem. So, you can have several sources for one particular risk, right? And you may have other situation where from one source you can have several risks. So, source 1, risk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on, right? So, that can also be possible, right? From one source you can have several risks, from several sources you can have one risk, right? So, risk factor identification, yeah, this is what I just told you. From one source you can have several risks, right? So, apart from brainstorming session, as I said, apart from these methods of identifying risks, there are other ways also you can identify risk. Documentation review. Since you have done documentation properly and you have also noted down risks which have occurred in your project in past, so you can review those documents, right? So, that would give you an idea about future risks. And then now there is something called sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity analysis means how your output would change with change in input, right? So, let us say if you are a car manufacturer, and let us say if you have come up with a new braking system, right? So, how that braking system would affect the performance of the car, right? So, all these such type of experiments can be performed in lab itself or in plant itself, right? So, this is sensitivity analysis. What will happen if something, let us say if input is changed, and what will happen to the output because of that particular change, right? Then you have got assumptions analysis. Now, this is something which is one of the reasons for most of the risks. Whenever we plan something or when we come up with with a new project, we make several positive assumptions. We are very much optimistic. We are very much optimistic about future, right? So, we will say that we will get loan in time, we will get material in time, we will have technical experts in time. So, when we make all these assumptions, but most of the times assumptions may go wrong, right? So, you should look at your assumptions carefully, analyze your assumptions carefully, right? And there is something called decision tree analysis. Let me skip this. There is something called simulation. Simulation is basically the imitation of real life situation, and generally we use simulation when your environment is highly uncertain, right? And then you may have diagrammatic technique for risk identification, right? So let's say there is a defect in a part. So you want to find out what are the reasons for that defect. So the defect in your product or in your part could be due to faulty raw material, because your vendor has not supplied quality material. It could be due to method, right? The process which you have applied for making that particular product, right? There may be a problem in machine, right? So let's say your machine tool is, let's say cutting tool is not properly working, right? So or let's say there is some problem in machine itself, right? So is that problem is because of machine or some time, let's say time. You are making a product at a time when it should not be made, right? So is the time affecting quality of the product or energy, or is anything wrong in measurement of let's say dimensions of raw material, right? Is there any problem of operator is not trained, or is there any problem of environment, right? Let's say temperature, pressure, humidity and so on, right? So this is known as cause and effect diagram. It's also known as fishbone diagram because it looks like fishbone, right? So very important technique for identification of risk, right? Now whenever you are trying to identify risk, you should come up with something called risk breakdown structure. This is similar to work breakdown structure. We have seen what is work breakdown structure. In work breakdown structure, we have got, let's say at the top level you have got plans, isn't it? Then you have got programs, isn't it? Then project, sub projects and so on, right? So that is work breakdown structure. So similar to that, you need to come up with risk breakdown structure for every project, and this risk breakdown structure would be different for project, different for every project and for every organization, right? So you should prepare RBS very carefully, right? So what are the possible risks, right? Whether the risk is technical in nature or external or organizational or project management, right? Let's look at this. External risk, maybe subcontractors and suppliers, right? They have not supplied material in time. Regulatory risk, government may come up with some new policy, right? Isn't it? Let's say if you are in telecom sector, then let's say if TRAI comes with new policy tomorrow, so that would be external risk, right? Market risk, there are several competitors. Customer risk, because customers are very demanding these days. Weather risk, right? So these are external risks. Similarly, you can have technical risk, you can have organizational risk, and you can have risk at project management level, right? And they are unable to estimate cost of the project properly, right? They are unable to estimate completion time of the project improperly, right? So planning is not properly done, controlling of several resources is not done, and there is not much communication amongst different team members, isn't there, are amongst different departments of the organization. So that is project management risk, right? So you should come up with RBS, right? Risk breakdown structure, right? So for we talked about risk identification, right? The second stage is risk management assessment, and we will see this in next session. So with this, let me complete this particular session. Thank you very much.